The engineering case study we chose to address is the case about the Algo Center Mall project at Lake Elliot. The mall was commissioned by Algoson Realty Holding Limited. The project was an estimated $10 million. Construction began in 1979 and lasted 1 year. By 1990, there were already minor leaks, water damage, as well as early signs of structural problems. By 2012, a huge section of the mall collapsed due to a failure of the structural connecting beam. It was the weld that failed due to corrosion. There were several ethical issues surrounding this incident we'll be addressing too. Case 1. The first ethical issue we're addressing is that the head engineer, John Cadillac, advised in using a structural material which was insufficient to withstand the load of the structure. John Cadillac opted to go with an 8-inch high carbon steel member, even though he had been advised by a materials company that the member would be insufficient and that extra reinforcement would be required. John Cadillac was in violation of Section 77.2I of the Code of Ethics and Section 77.2F under professional misconduct. For Case 2, the ethical issue we're addressing is the investigation following the collapse of the roof, in which 20 people were injured and 2 were killed. During the investigation, the developers pressured the engineers to remove and conceal information regarding the water damage and corrosion from the reports. Fake reports were created to mislead the tenants as well as the public. The engineers were following Section 77.3 of the Code of Ethics, but they were in violation of Section 72.2A, B, F, J, and L, all under professional misconduct. Assessing possible alternative options. For Case 1, using the 8-inch high carbon steel member along with the recommended reinforcement. This would have cost more upfront, but in the long run, it would have prevented the roof from collapsing and the need of future repairs. For Case 2, an alternative option would be to go whistleblowing to PEO and report all incidents accurately. In doing so, the engineers would be breaking and in violation of Section 77.3. However, it would have been justifiable by protecting the welfare of the public in complying with Section 77.2I, which trumps all other clauses. Making a final decision. For Case 1, going with the more expensive option of using the necessary reinforcement. Prevention is always better than a cure. This option would cost more upfront, but would ensure the building has more than sufficient support and prevent any future structural problems. For Case 2, go whistleblowing to PEO. Inform them that they are being pressured to present false and fabricated reports. We will now cover how the Canadian legal system for engineers affects and is applied to this case. The plaintiffs in this case are the store owners, the public, and anyone who suffered financially and/or physically. This case deals with tort law as it addresses the financial recovery relative to a loss where the defendant owed the plaintiff a duty of care without any contractual relationship. There are 3 conditions which supports this is a tort law. 1. The defendant owed the plaintiff a duty of care. 2. The defendant failed in that duty of care in a way that was reasonably foreseeable. And 3. The plaintiff incurred loss or damage as a result. These conditions can be proven as such. Engineer Robert Wood signed off on the health of the mall just weeks before it collapsed. Robert Wood, who is now facing criminal charges in association with the collapse, also admitted to faking his report to quiet down the owners. The various owners of the mall hid the problems and tried to get away from the safety issues when the patchwork fixes didn't work. Their main concern was saving money. They ignored public complaints about leaks and falling pieces of concrete. Contract law also applies to this case. The mall offered a place for the store owners to conduct their business, and they, the store owners, by signing a lease, agreed to the terms. Both parties had the capacity to enter the contract. The deal was legal and had a lawful purpose. Contract terms were broken when store owners, like Scotia and the Elliot Lake Library, were forced to close temporarily due to water leaks and damage. Liabilities involved with this case. The engineers, by the mall owner's perspective, are an example of vicarious liability because they were working for the mall in which the designs failed to hold, and they should have reported the negligence by the owner to higher authority. In addition, concurrent liabilities applies to many parties involved in this incident, such as the mall owner and the defendants mentioned earlier. Legal consequences and final decisions. The court would most likely decide to charge the head engineer, Robert Wood, with 1 account of criminal negligence causing death and 1 account of criminal negligence causing bodily harm. Consequential and recoverable damages. The court would most likely decide to have the mall owners compensate for the loss of profit, income, business, and property damage, as well as the mall owners would have to pay for all physical and psychological damages done to the victims and their families. This concludes our presentation. Thank you all for watching.